I lost mom and aunt refused to let me move in BC. I'm 18. Years later, she shows up and begs my food scraps. My mother's coffin was still warm when Aunt Clara slammed her door in my face. At 18, I was an orphan, a suitcase of dreams in one hand and her cruel words in my heart. You're grown. Figure it out. The rain soaked me through that night, each drop a reminder that I was utterly alone. I stood on her porch, shivering, the weight of Mom's death and Clara's rejection crushing my spirit. I'd lost everything, my home, my family, my anchor. All I had was a vague promise I made to Mom to keep going, no matter what. That promise became my lifeline, but it didn't shield me from the cold. Hard truth, the world doesn't care about an 18-year-old with nowhere to go. The streets of Chicago weren't kind to me. I spent my first night in an alley, curled up behind a dumpster, the stench of rotting food mixing with my tears. I'd always been the quiet kid, the one who got good grades and stayed out of trouble. Mom raised me to believe in kindness, in family, but Clara's rejection shattered that illusion. She was Mom's older sister, the only family I had left. When Mom got sick, Clara promised to look after me, but when I showed up, desperate and grieving, she saw a burden, not a niece. I've got my own kids, she'd said, her voice sharp as a blade. You'll survive. Survive. That word became my mantra, my curse, my fuel. I survived by clawing my way through. I found a shelter that didn't ask too many questions. A place where lost souls like me could get a bed and a meal if we followed the rules. The shelter was loud, crowded, and smelled of despair, but it was better than the alley. I got a job bussing tables at a diner, the kind of place where the coffee was weak and the customers were mean. My hands cracked from washing dishes. My back ached from standing 10-hour shifts. But every dollar I saved was a step towards something better. I didn't know what better looked like, but I held on to Mom's memory like a beacon. She'd always said I was stronger than I knew. I didn't feel strong, but I faked it until I did. School was a distant dream, but I studied when I could, sneaking into public libraries to read textbooks left on tables. I learned to blend in, to look like I belonged. At night, I'd lie awake, replaying Clara's words, her cold eyes, the way she'd turned me away. Anger kept me warm. I vowed I'd prove her wrong, that I'd build a life she couldn't imagine. But the loneliness was a constant shadow. I'd see families at the diner laughing, arguing, existing together, and it felt like a knife twisting in my chest. I wanted to scream, to demand why I didn't get to have that. Instead, I smiled, poured coffee, and pocketed my tips. Years passed like pages in a book I didn't want to read. By 25, I'd scraped together enough to rent a tiny apartment, a shoebox with peeling paint and a leaky faucet. It wasn't much, but it was mine. I enrolled in community college, studying business between shifts at the diner. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was building. I started a small catering side hustle, using Mom's old recipes, her creamy mac and cheese, her spicy jerk chicken. Customers loved it, and word spread. By 30, I had a food truck, Mama's Kitchen, painted bright yellow to honor her. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine, and it felt like a middle finger to everyone who doubted me, especially Clara. I hadn't seen or heard from her in over a decade. I tried not to think about her, but sometimes, late at night, her face would creep into my mind smirking, unyielding. I wondered if she ever regretted turning me away. I doubted it. Clara was the type who doubled down, who'd rather die than admit she was wrong. So when I saw her that evening, outside my food truck, I didn't recognize her at first. She was a ghost of the woman I'd known, thin, hunched, her once pristine clothes stained and ragged. Her eyes, though, those were the same sharp, but now clouded with something new, desperation. It was closing time, and I was tossing out the day's scraps, burnt rolls, half-eaten fries into the alley bin. She was there, digging through the trash, her hands trembling as she grabbed a crust of bread. My heart stopped. This was Clara, the woman who'd left me to drown, now scavenging for my leftovers. I wanted to laugh, to scream, to walk away and let her rot in her own choices. But something in me, maybe Mom's voice, maybe my own stubborn heart wouldn't let me. Clara, I said, my voice low, steady, though inside I was shaking. She froze, her hand clutching the bread. She looked up, and for a moment, I saw the old Clara, the one who'd raised 2 kids, who'd always had a clean house and a sharp tongue. But then she crumpled, her shoulders sagging, her eyes filling with tears. Lila, she whispered, my name sounding foreign on her lips. I didn't know it was you. Lies. My food truck had my name plastered on it, my face in the local paper when I won a small business award. She knew. She just didn't think I'd catch her. What happened to you, I asked. Not sure I wanted the answer. She told me in fits and starts her husband left. Her kids moved away. Her savings dried up. She'd lost her house, her pride, everything. She'd been on the streets for months, too ashamed to reach out. I listened, my arms crossed, my heart a battlefield of pity and rage. Part of me wanted to help her, to give her a hot meal, a place to sleep. Part of me wanted to let her suffer, to feel the weight of her own cruelty. I'd been her once alone, desperate, discarded. She hadn't cared then. Why should I care now? But I wasn't her. I'd fought too hard to become someone else, someone Mom would be proud of. I handed her a bag of food fresh, not scraps, and told her to come back tomorrow. Not because you deserve it, I said, my voice cold. Because I'm not you. She nodded, tears streaming down her face, and shuffled away into the night. I didn't know if she'd come back, or if I'd see her again. I didn't know if I'd forgiven her, or if I ever could. But I felt something shift inside me, a weight lifting. Not because I'd helped her, but because I'd chosen to be better than her. The next day, she didn't show. I kept an eye out, half expecting her to slink back, but she was gone. Weeks turned into months, and I heard whispers she'd moved to a shelter. Maybe left the city. I didn't know, and I told myself I didn't care. But every time I tossed scraps into the bin, I thought of her, of the girl I'd been, of the woman I'd become. I'd built a life from nothing, not because of Clara, but in spite of her. And yet, that moment in the alley haunted me. Was I right to give her food? Should I have turned away, like she did to me? The questions gnawed at me, but they also made me think about what it means to be human, to hold on to grace when the world tries to strip it away. Life went on. Mama's kitchen grew, and I opened a second truck, then a small restaurant. I hired kids from the shelter, gave them a chance like I'd needed. I wasn't a saint, but I was proof you could rise above the pain, that you could choose who you wanted to be. Clara's shadow lingered, a reminder of what I'd overcome, and maybe, in some twisted way, a reminder of why I kept going. I'd lost Mom, and Clara had refused to let me in, but I'd found my own way, and that was enough. What do you think? Was Lila right to help Clara, or should she have walked away? Share your thoughts on where the line between compassion and justice lies. And Hamanam.